Cast your mind back to the year 1929, the world was in a state of flux. It was a time of great change and uncertainty as the Roaring Twenties gave way to the Great Depression. Economies around the globe were tumbling and millions were left without work, struggling to make ends meet. It was a world of disparity, where the gap between the haves and the have-nots was widening with every passing day. In the United States, the situation was no different. In fact, it was even more pronounced, especially for the African American community. Racial segregation was the law of the land, and inequality was rife. Opportunities for African Americans were few and far between, and the American dream seemed like a distant reality, tarnished by prejudice and discrimination. Amidst this chaos and inequality, on January 15th, a beacon of hope was born: Martin Luther King Jr. Young Martin Luther King Jr. was not born a leader, but his experiences shaped him into one. Born in Atlanta, Georgia in the year 1929, King was the second of three children. His father, Martin Luther King Sr., was a Baptist minister and a civil rights leader in his own right, setting the stage for King's own path. Growing up, King was no stranger to the harsh realities of racial segregation. He experienced firsthand the sting of racial discrimination, shaping his perspective of the world around him. These experiences didn't embitter him, but rather sparked a flame within him. A flame that yearned for justice, equality, and freedom for all. Despite the social constraints he faced, King was a bright spark in academia. He graduated high school at the tender age of 15. His intellectual prowess was undeniable. He went on to Morehouse College, a historically black institution where he studied sociology. It was here that King's intellectual curiosity was piqued. He delved into the works of philosophers, theologians, and civil rights activists, drawing inspiration and formulating his own ideas about social justice and activism. King's early exposure to the church was instrumental in shaping his life's mission. His father's ministry instilled in him the values of compassion, selflessness, and a commitment to social justice. The church was not just a place of worship, it was a place of community, a place of activism, a place where King would find his voice. King's journey to becoming one of the most influential leaders of the civil rights movement was not straightforward. It was a path paved with adversity, trials, and tribulations, but through it all, King remained steadfast. His early life experiences, his intellectual curiosity, and his spiritual grounding prepared him for the monumental task that lay ahead. His experiences set the stage for a life devoted to fighting injustice. And fight he did. His story is a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and the unyielding belief in the possibility of a better, more equitable world. The journey from Martin to Dr. King was both academic and spiritual. It began in the hallways of Morehouse College, where a young King enrolled at the tender age of 15, propelled by a wartime policy aimed at boosting enrollment. He was an eager student, graduating with a degree in sociology and a thirst for knowledge that would lead him to his next academic destination, Crozer Theological Seminary. At Crozer, King delved into the depths of theology, a subject that would shape the course of his life and the future of an entire nation. Here he grappled with the complexities of faith and morality, seeking answers to the pressing questions of his time. But it was his time at Boston University where King's philosophical journey truly began to take shape. It was here he discovered the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, an advocate of nonviolent resistance. King was moved by Gandhi's philosophy, seeing in it a practical application for the Christian principles of love and forgiveness. He realized that nonviolence was not just a political strategy. It was a way of life, a path that demanded courage, patience, and an unyielding belief in the power of love. King's academic journey was not just about gathering knowledge, it was about understanding how to use that knowledge to effect change. His studies allowed him to see the potential in nonviolent resistance as a tool for social and political reform. It was a tool he would wield with great effect in the years to come. King graduated with his doctorate in systematic theology in 1955, but he was not the same man who had entered those academic halls years earlier. His mind had been sharpened, his spirit fortified, and his resolve strengthened. The young man from Atlanta had transformed into Dr. King, a scholar, a minister, and a budding civil rights leader. Armed with knowledge and a firm belief in nonviolence, Dr. King was ready to step onto the national stage. His journey was far from over, but he was well prepared for the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. He was no longer just Martin, he was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., ready to lead a movement and inspire a nation. In the 1950s and 60s, a storm was brewing in America, the civil rights movement, and at its helm was Dr. King. This was a time of profound change, a time when the nation was forced to confront the reality of its racial divisions. The civil rights movement was a struggle for social justice, a fight for the basic human rights of African Americans, and Dr. King was right there in the thick of it. Let's take a step back to the year 1955, to a city named Montgomery, Alabama. Here, a simple act of defiance by a woman named Rosa Parks sparked a movement that would change the world. Refusing to give up her seat on a bus to a white passenger, Parks was arrested, and in response, Dr. King led a boycott of the city's bus system. This Montgomery bus boycott lasted for over a year and ultimately led to a Supreme Court ruling that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. This was one of the first major victories of the civil rights movement, and it placed Dr. King firmly at its forefront. Fast forward to August 28, 1963. A sea of people, over 200,000 strong, gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. They were there for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and Dr. King was there to speak to them. His "I Have a Dream" speech delivered that day is considered one of the greatest speeches in American history. In it, Dr. King shared his vision of a future where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His words echoed across the nation, giving voice to the hopes and dreams of millions. Despite the threats and violence, Dr. King remained steadfast, inspiring millions with his dream of equality. His leadership, courage, and unwavering commitment to nonviolence were the driving forces behind the civil rights movement, forever changing the course of American history. Dr. King's fight for equality was not without its cost. His journey was fraught with obstacles, each one testing his resolve. Arrested over 20 times, King faced the inside of a jail cell for his beliefs more often than most could imagine. Yet even within those cold, harsh confines, his spirit remained unbroken. Threats rained down upon him, not only endangering his own life, but those of his loved ones, too. A lesser man may have faltered, may have chosen to step away from such peril, but King? He did not. The risk to him was worth the reward. His resilience was astounding, his commitment unwavering. Through every trial, every tribulation, he held fast to his cause. He knew the path to equality was steep and treacherous, but he trudged on, steadfast and resolute. His struggle was significant, his sacrifices monumental. Even in the face of danger, Dr. King refused to back down. His courage and tenacity continue to inspire us today. On April 4, 1968, the voice of the civil rights movement was tragically silenced. This was the day when the world lost a beacon of hope and change. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee, King was assassinated, an event that sent shockwaves across the nation and the world. A leader was gone, but the march towards freedom and equality did not stop. His untimely death was not merely an individual tragedy, but a profound loss for the civil rights movement and the entire nation. His dream, however, did not die with him. It continued to inspire millions, fueling the ongoing fight for racial equality. The loss of King was a stark reminder of the costs of the struggle, the sacrifices made, and the lengths to which some would go to resist change. But while his life was cut short, his legacy was far from over. The dream lived on, the fight continued, and the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. still echoes in our hearts and minds. Dr. King's dream did not die with him. It lives on in the hearts and minds of millions. His legacy is one that transcends time and borders, inspiring generations to rise above prejudice and racism. His words, filled with fervor and unyielding hope, continue to echo through the ages, a testament to his enduring influence. King's principles of equality, love, and nonviolence remain as relevant today as they were over 6 decades ago. They continue to inspire movements for social justice, propelling us towards a world where everyone is judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His dream serves as a beacon, guiding us through the tumultuous seas of inequality and injustice. His legacy is not just in the laws that were changed or the awards he received, it's in the hearts he touched, the minds he opened, and the society he helped transform. Martin Luther King Jr. may be gone, but his dream of equality, love, and nonviolence continues to resonate, reminding us all to keep dreaming.